So we have this week actually two parashas, Acharei Mos and Kedoshim. We're going to be focusing on Acharei Mos. Acharei Mos means after the death of, or after the passing of. And the Torah starts off talking about Acharei Mos Shnei Bnei Aaron, after the passing of the two sons of Aaron. V'karvasam lifnei Hashem v'yomuso, after they came close before Hashem and they passed away. That's what the Torah says. That's what the Pasuk says. That's where the name Acharei Mos comes from. One thing that we have here is that it seems to be redundant. It says, after the passing of the sons of Aaron when they came close before Hashem and they passed away. We know that they passed away. It just said after the passing of the two sons of Aaron. It could have said after the passing of the two sons of Aaron when they came close to Hashem. Why does it repeat and they passed away? That's one thing we're going to get to. Also, there's a medrash about the sons of Aaron and why they passed away. So let's go to the second paragraph on page 248 in the Hebrew. Yeah, they went around. I don't know where they're at now. No. Okay. So, among the things for which the sons of Aaron were punished and they died, the Midrash counts as still on the following. They went in. Lifnei v'lifnim indicates going in all the way to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which is a place that only the Kohen Gadol was allowed to, and even he was only allowed to go in on Yom Kippur. So Lifnei v'lifnim Kodesh HaKadoshim. Chusrei begodim. They were missing garments. Now, what that means at the level of Pshat is that Kohanim have to wear certain clothes when they're serving Hashem. In the Beis Hamikdash, when they're doing the Avod in the Beis Hamikdash, the Kohen Gadol has to wear even more clothes when he's doing his service. And they went in and did this service without the appropriate clothing. They weren't wearing their correct clothes. 2, three, they didn't have children, and they didn't have wives, they were not married. What does all of this have to do with the Pasuk? Where does this come from? Where is this indicated in the Pasuk? What's the connection to the Pasuk? The Pasuk says when they came close before Hashem and they passed away, what do all of these things have to do with that? They don't seem to be relevant, to be connected. Also, another question that we're going to layer on top of all of that is that knowing who Nadav and Avihu, the sons of Aaron, were, it seems unusual that they would that they would sin, period, and certainly that they would do the sort of sin that would require them to lose their lives. So what's going on here? So the first thing is to understand generally, what did they do? What was going on? What was their motivation? What were they involved in? And why? And then everything else is closer to Hashem, to become more closely united with Hashem. And that was everything to them. And that is, to a degree, a good thing. Not necessarily to a degree, that is a good thing. And, before we start talking about what they did wrong and where they went wrong and how and why, let's acknowledge that if everybody in the world got up in the morning and thought about how they could connect more strongly to Hashem and get closer to Hashem, things would look a lot better than they do. Now, of course, that's, just the fine print that comes with that is that, we are very unimaginably fortunate to live in the time that we live in. And, the last year and a half specifically has had some very serious challenges, but life period has challenges. That being said, when people say things like, oh, this is such a difficult and stressful time to be alive, it's such an absurd and misled and entitled thing to say, considering that 100 years ago, and I'm not talking about the wars, the world wars, regardless of that, and before the world wars and in between the world wars, almost everyone, the vast majority of humanity, got up and worked from dawn till dusk 7 days a week just to have like a slice of bread to eat and a cup of water to drink every day. And that was their whole life. And, the difficulties that were associated with life until we had the Industrial Revolution and then technology that we have today, the poorest person in the developed world, let's say, which is where, the complaining happens. It's not happening in places where people actually don't have clean water to drink. The poorest person in the developed world today probably has literally a more convenient and a higher quality of life than even the exceptionally wealthy people did 200 years ago. Everybody's got a smartphone. Life's difficult. I'm not taking away from that. But if you compare what life looked like 200 years ago, if someone got pneumonia or someone got a cold or someone got a basic, simple infection, it didn't matter how much money. They could have had all the money in the world, but there were no antibiotics. That was it. Every single family, literally, there wouldn't have been a family until 100 years ago. It's a painful thing to say, but they didn't lose several children. Every family had, someone who passed away during childbirth, and someone who passed away from an infection, and someone who passed away from malnutrition, and someone else who was killed in war. Like, that was a reality of every family, every single family. There was no such thing as life that didn't include all of those things for everyone. We live in a world today in which we can go and get antibiotics, and war is far too prevalent, but thankfully nowhere near as prevalent as it was for the entirety of human history until, very recently. And all these things, life is, Baruch Hashem, life is good, and the world is the best place it's ever been, and life is the best that it's ever been on average. That being said, it could be better. Right, there could be less division, and there could be, and the truth is that some of the things that I was going to be going in the direction of, there are, some terrible illnesses that are a lot more prominent today than they were. Partly people attribute it to just awareness, and that's probably part of it, but a big part of it is also that there are, like in the category of mental illness specifically, a lot of mental illnesses were far less prevalent, 100 plus years ago, because no one had time to stop and think and breathe. And there was no time to be anxious, and there was no time to be depressed. People got out of bed and they worked until they collapsed in bed at night when it was dark, because if they wanted to have bread to eat and they wanted to have walls around them at night so that they didn't become breakfast for an animal that lived in the trees 100 feet away, that's what you had to do. There was no time to even stop and think. So a lot of the problems that we have today, and also problems of, malcontent and etc., a lot of these issues are a direct outcome of how good life is, thank God. That doesn't mean that these problems are not problems at all. But a lot of the big problems that we do have are problems that result from how good and convenient and luxurious life is, largely. But the bottom line is that, it could be better. There could be just even a sense of purpose. If everybody had a strong sense of purpose and meaning in life, think about how different the world would be. Think about how different life would look. Think about how different social media would look. I mean, it's a bit of a contradiction because they're a big part of why people don't have purpose and meaning in their lives, but that's a separate conversation. But, if we all woke up in the morning and thought, how can I connect to Hashem today? How can I come as close as possible to Hashem today? It'd be all right. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. And the truth is, that's the whole point of Chassidus. The whole reason the whole focus of learning Chassidus, of learning Pnimius HaTorah, of learning the mystical parts of Torah is to increase our conscious awareness of and appreciation for spirituality and divinity, so that we care about it more and become more interested in it and more focused on it and work and strive towards it more strongly. It's a very, very important thing, and it brings a huge amount of, it increases very simply just quality of life dramatically. It brings us, generally speaking, it helps us align our lives with the purpose, with why we're here, with Torah, with mitzvahs, because it is all about divinity and spirituality. And the more closely we're focused on those things, the better off we're going to be, to a degree. Because the question is, where did they go wrong? Now, I'm thinking about, let's do it. So we generally, it's very common, let's say, for people to think of Hashem as being spiritual, right? Hashem is spirituality. Hashem is spiritual. But the truth is that it's not actually technically correct to say that Hashem is spiritual, or Hashem is, in the category of spirituality. To us, it's natural to perceive Hashem as being a spiritual entity because we are physical and we live in and relate to physical reality. And to us, relative to that, to what we relate to and the way that we experience things, anything that's not physical to us is spiritual. It's in the non-physical / or AKA spiritual basket. But, and that's true to a degree, but Hashem's not in that category. Hashem created both physical and spiritual. Spirituality is a creation that Hashem created. It's not a category that Hashem fits into. It's a category that was created by Hashem. The truth is, at first I was differentiating between non-physical and spiritual because Hashem is not physical. But the truth is, it's probably also not technically correct to say that Hashem is non-physical, because that's defining Hashem as being in the category of things that's non-physical. First of all, non-physical is already too descriptive. And second of all, Hashem isn't defined as being not physical. Hashem is undefinable. And any specific description we place on Hashem is, by virtue of the fact that descriptions, adjectives are there to limit and define, is technically incorrect about Hashem. We cannot apply any adjective to Hashem, including non-physical, which is a limitation because everything that's physical comes from Hashem and exists in potential within Hashem. So physicality and Hashem are not mutually exclusive at all. Hashem is no more spiritual than Hashem is physical. Hashem is the creator of both spiritual and physical and is limited to neither. And when one pursues spirituality and loses focus on the fact that spirituality is something that Hashem created for a reason, they can end up way, 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 way off track. And the question that needs to be asked is, why is a person pursuing spirituality? Right? What is it about spirituality, about spiritual layers of reality and Olam Yonim and Atzilus and Bria and angels and all these things and godliness? What is it about all these things that makes them valuable? Anyone? What is it about spirituality that makes it valuable? We learn Chassidus and spirituality is Ruchnius is more valuable than Gashmi. Spirituality is more valuable than material things. So we should aspire for those and strive towards those. And first of all, we should aspire and strive towards actually appreciating that, which would then give us aspiration and strive towards actually achieving and getting closer to those things. What's actually superior about spirituality than the physical? Why is it more valuable?
You mean spirituality like other worlds, or spirituality like here that we have? Like,
Oh, that's a good question. Either or both.
like it's more about neshama and stuff, and then because like that's our purpose here, to focus not on like brushness, like to transform ourselves.
So are you saying that the value comes from the fact that it's our purpose?
Sort of. Like,
Okay, that's really the right answer. But that's not the right answer to what I'm asking for now, because what I'm trying to get to now is, well, also the right answer, but at a different level. You're like,
it's like something that prevents us from doing our purpose.
yeah. Okay, so let me try and come at it from a slightly different angle to try and get to where I'm trying to go. Right? A person learns Chassidus and it's like, yes, spirituality is amazing and I want to be more in touch with spirituality. And just to clarify, when I say spirituality, I don't mean, the sensation someone gets when they take DMT or something like that. I mean, that's a conversation and a big debate for itself. But, when someone takes a psychoactive substance and they have a spiritual experience, to me, I wouldn't describe that as actually being technically spiritual. Is a physical experience that, is hard to describe, and people describe it as spiritual, but it's a physical phenomenon that's happening in the brain. It's a neurochemical phenomenon. It's a very physical thing. It's not a spiritual event. It's a physical event. If we understand spirituality to be another layer of reality or other layers of reality that are not defined by the parameters that define physical reality. It's not made out of physical mass. It's not made out of physical energy. It's a different layer of reality completely. That's not what happens when someone has a trip. When someone has a trip, it's a very physical thing. It's a neurochemical phenomenon that's physical, that is frequently described as spiritual because the experience is difficult to describe and may seem spiritual, but it's a very physical phenomenon. It's a physical thing that's happening in the location of a person's brain with physical molecules. It's not a spiritual event. But when we talk about that which is actually spiritual, that which does not physically exist, angels, Atzilus, spirit, like objective, actual spirituality. What is it about that that's valuable? Why is it that, that learning the mystical parts of Torah, that learning Pnimius Torah, learning Kabbalah, learning Chassidus would make one interested in striving towards those and connecting to them?
I think when things like far from us, like very far from us, so we appreciate them like more, like things that we can, I would say להשיג.
To get, to reach.
Yeah, so like we appreciate them more. For example, like it's like very different, but for example, a very luxury car, like inside, I don't know, like a glass, we appreciate it more than like, I don't know, something from Zara.
Right, but I want to point on something that you said there. You said inside glass, right? That's a marketing thing that people will do. The fact that you put it inside some sort of enclosure increases the feeling of distance, which just makes you want it more badly. It's not just the price, and that's why they do things like that, right? And put it behind something, which just makes you want it even more desperately. Right, so there is this, it's a phenomenon of human nature. Distance makes the heart grow fonder, and the grass is always greener on the other side. And the things that we can't have, it's human nature that we want. Yes, but that's already... I'm talking about what's a valid, like a positive reason to want it, not something that just happens by default as a result of maybe even a weakness of human nature. But why does it make sense that one should want spirituality, to come closer to that which is spiritual? Like what makes spirituality more valuable? Spirituality is amazing. Spirituality. Why? What about spirituality makes it valuable and a positive thing that one might make sense to strive towards and to achieve and to come closer to?
That's what kind of connects us to Hashem, and that's what we want.
Okay, good. So think about what is it that defines the difference between physical and not just physical and spiritual, but let's talk about the four worlds, right? Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya. What is the difference between each of the worlds?
The Lord is
Revealed and concealed in terms of Hashem.
Right. So the thing that defines the difference between the worlds is the awareness of Hashem that exists within the world, right? Together with that awareness, there is going to be a resemblance. And you could see this even across people who have a greater awareness, and I don't mean just academic awareness, because that doesn't necessarily play out, but people who have a real awareness of Hashem that's both academic and emotional and personal and real, their behavior is going to tend to be more in line with Hashem, right? And the way their behavior is going to resemble Hashem's behavior more closely. Now, the world of Atzilus, right? It's called Atzilus. What does Atzilus mean? Eitzel means next to. Atzilus literally means the world of proximity or the world of closeness. It's a world in which the conscious awareness of Hashem is extremely strong. Because this world has an extremely high level of conscious awareness of Hashem, or this layer of reality, or whatever we want to call it, the natural outcome of that is going to be that this layer of reality is going to have a very strong resemblance to Hashem. Right? It's going to be godly, godlike in nature. It's not God. Atzilus is not God, but it's not incorrect to say that it's godly. Right? It resembles Hashem much more closely than subsequent layers of reality in which the awareness of Hashem has been further reduced. As the awareness of Hashem gets reduced, the resemblance to Hashem gets reduced. Right? So when we connect with something that is more spiritual, more spiritually high, whatever we, want to call it, we are being in touch with something that is more godly, more godlike, resembles Hashem more closely, and has a closer awareness of Hashem, which means that in a lot of real ways, its connection to Hashem is stronger and deeper and closer. So by connecting to spirituality, we're connecting to a stronger and deeper and closer connection to Hashem. And godliness, that which resembles Hashem very strongly. And it makes sense, right? Because if Hashem is the only objective, absolute truth, and everything that's true is true secondary to the fact that Hashem makes it be true, which means that its truth is context dependent, right? Its truth is an outcome of the fact that Hashem makes it be true. It's not absolutely true, and it's not even technically, you could probably say objectively true, but it's not absolutely objectively true, right? The objective truth is secondary to the fact that Hashem makes it be that way. It'll still be objective, I guess, but it's not absolute. It makes sense that if something has a deeper connection to Hashem, we'd want it, get onto it and get after it. Why? If we value Hashem and we value absolute truth, then we're going to value that which has a connection to absolute truth, and we're going to want to be connected to it, to be in proximity to it, to be in touch with it. What does it mean that we value it? Interesting. I want to look up the definition, actually, of value, technical definition of value. Ask Rabbi Google. I'm becoming increasingly whatever.
But spirituality, it sounds so distant and whatever. And in terms of what we do to connect to Hashem, it's like physical. Like we do a lot of things physically to connect to Hashem. So.
Right, true. But even if the reason, that I'm doing something physical, that I'm engaging in a physical activity is because that's going to connect me to spirituality, ultimately my motive.
So what Hashem is spirituality is just what?
Okay, good. So you're already, but before we even get there, I want to talk about what value is. Okay, good. So this one I'll do. In regard that something is held to deserve the importance, worth, or usefulness of something, or, right, to value something as a verb, to consider someone or something to be important or beneficial, right? Beneficial is the word that I'm looking for. Something is valuable. Why is it valuable? Because it provides, today people say it's like it's not even today. It's already like probably a 2018 fad, but people talk about all the time on LinkedIn still bringing value. I want to bring value, provide value. What does it mean to provide value? It means to do something that's of benefit to someone, right? Something is valuable because it provides benefit of some sort. Money is valuable because it facilitates or gives us the ability to purchase things and experiences, pretty much, right? So something is valuable generally if it provides benefit. So if I consider spirituality to be valuable, I want to pursue it. I want to be connected to it. Why? Because it provides me with a benefit. It gets me close to something that I want to be close to.
Then it sounds superficial.
Sorry?
It sounds more superficial, like it's like, I don't know. You're doing it because that's what you want.
Well, we always
Right.
do things we want.
So ultimately, it's a
But, like,
self-centered
it's like-
pursuit.
Exactly. Yes.
Right. That's the words. I could tell that you were going to get there, and that's what you said, because that's what we want, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, the pursuit of spirituality can very possibly be a self-centered pursuit. Granted, among the self-centered pursuits that occur, it's on the better end of the spectrum. And if everybody was engaged in the self-centered pursuit of true spirituality, I could think of worse ways that the world could look than the way it would look then. But ultimately, it's still self-centered. Right? And it's, in a relationship, and it could be a marriage, it could be a friendship, it could be anything. If you have a relationship between two people, right? If there's someone who you have a relationship with, whatever kind of relationship it is, and if there's someone who wants to always be around you because they like you and then they enjoy being in your presence, they enjoy being around you, maybe they love you, so they want to be close to you, and that's the extent of the relationship as far as they're concerned, and that's the extent of their love for you, that they want to be around you and in your presence and close to you, that's not going to be a very fulfilling relationship. You're probably going to get sick of that person pretty quickly. If you really love someone, you're going to, at the same time, you are going to want to be close to them and want to be around them. And the more deeply and strongly you love someone, the more strongly you're going to want to be close to them, and the closer you're going to want to be to them. And also, the more you're going to be concerned about their needs and wants. And the more you're going to want to do what you can to cater to their needs and wants, and to take care of and to see their needs and wants met. If someone loves you and always wants to be around you and doesn't actually care about your needs and wants, they don't really actually love you. They love themselves, and being close to you makes them feel good. So that's what they want, right? If someone actually loved you, they'd care about you and about your needs and about your wants as well. Granted, that person by definition is most likely also going to want to be close to you. But if they love you, they're going to care about you and your needs and your wants as well. And just wanting to pursue spirituality because one values the absolute truth of Hashem, and the fact that the more spiritual, the more spiritually attuned and spiritually advanced something is, the greater the degree to which it's in touch with that and it resembles that absolute truth of Hashem. Therefore, one wants to just be closer to that. That's self-centered. If a person really loves Hashem as opposed to valuing Hashem, you can value someone without loving them at all, right? You can value someone for the opportunities that become available to you by having a connection with this person, right? You can want to do this with someone without wanting to spend personal time with them at all. You don't love them at all. You value them very highly, and you go to great lengths to nurture your relationship with them because of the value, the benefit you stand to gain through your connection with this person, but you might not love them at all. You don't really care about them. And a person can value spirituality, a person can value Hashem without actually loving or caring about Hashem. They care about the degree to which they get to experience that because they appreciate the value of objective truth, the realness of objective and absolute truth. And so they want to be connected to it, but not actually care about the interests of the absolute truth, not actually love it or care about it. Learning Chassidus is going to awaken the neshama and bring a person closer, for sure. First of all, it's a question of degrees. And different people connect differently, and there are some, but even if a person gets it right, it's possible to get caught up with it and really care about it. But when you really, really, really zoom in, it's like, does the person want it because they realize how valuable and special and amazing it is, so they want to connect to it? Or are they doing it because it's what Hashem wants? It's two very different things. Right now, again, halavai, if only the world was a place in which everybody was involved in the self-centered pursuit of true spirituality and absolute truth, we'd be doing okay. That being said, doesn't necessarily make it the right thing. And where Nadav and Avihu went wrong was that they were obsessed with the pursuit of spirituality because they valued closeness to Hashem, because they wanted to be close to Hashem. And that what seems like it might be, a minor misalignment in their motivation can result in things going very, very, very wrong. I'm gonna I don't know how good this example is, but whatever. Just it's happening, in real time. But I think it'll make the point effectively. Some people like to keep family and business separate, right? And that's because I guess at the basic level, having a business relationship with someone could create tension at times. And you don't want to increase the likelihood of bringing that tension into a familiar relationship, into someone that you love. Keep it away from business. That way, we can stay family. Now, I'm going to give a very specific example that wouldn't necessarily apply in the majority of such cases. But let's say there could be instances in which the fact that someone's family and the fact that someone, let's say that you're running a operation, you're running a business, whatever it is, an organization of some sort, and there's someone who joins the team who loves you so much and is so obsessed with you that they don't do any work done because they're just busy trying to hang around you and to be as close to you as possible, and they're not focusing on their work. Their love for you is actually causing them to do the opposite of what you want them to do. And if someone really loved you, they'd say, okay, so what does this person want? I love this person. What do they want? What's in their best interest? Okay, let me go do that. And so Nadav and Avihu were like these people who were so obsessed with Hashem that they were busy trying to increase their proximity to Hashem without stopping to think, what does Hashem want? So what might seem like a minor misalignment can actually lead to an opposite actual practical pathway that takes us away from where we should be going rather than in direction of where we should be going. And what does Hashem want of us? Ultimately, what Hashem wants of us is to bring divinity into the world. And the way that we bring divinity into the world is by engaging with the world the right way, according to Torah, in the right ways and with the right intent and the right motivation. And by means of engaging with the world, we can integrate divinity and godliness and spirituality into it. And the more parts of the world we engage with, the more parts of the world into which we can integrate divinity. Now, it's true that the more we learn about the value of spirituality and divinity, if we do it right, if we do it correctly, the more that is going to increase our appreciation for Hashem's interests and our appreciation for the value of integrating spirituality into the physical world, because that's ultimately what Hashem wants. And there, it's still value. See, I used the word value, but because of what I did with the word value before, I feel like I need to clarify that. Here, what's the value? The value of integrating divinity in the world is not the benefit for us, it's the benefit for Hashem. That's what Hashem wants. If we truly love Hashem, the most valuable thing to us is going to be that which Hashem values, that which Hashem considers to be of personal benefit to Hashem. That's going to be the thing we value the most. And not of an Aviyah were going in the opposite direction. Not of an Aviyah were obsessed with their own pursuit of spirituality. And this is why, what does the Medrash tell us? It says they entered into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, where they didn't belong. They chose not to have children. Why? Children are children are extraordinarily demanding. They're demanding emotionally, they're demanding mentally, and very practically, they're just demanding in terms of time and focus. The fact is, if someone who is responsible for a child, it takes up a huge amount of time and attention. Being responsible for any other person will take away your time and focus from other things. Certainly true of a child. Also, certainly true more of a spouse than just a friend or any other relationship, right? A marriage is a demanding relationship, even if only demanding on time, if not demanding of anything else, which it is also, so again, mentally and emotionally demanding, etc. It's very demanding on time. Now, if a person has both of those relationships, and has a spouse and has children, that's going to be taking a lot of time away from anything else you might be interested in pursuing. A lot of time. And they weren't interested. Right? And this is why, for example, practical equivalent of this, people who are very career oriented and people for whom their career is a very high priority may often delay, right? They may want to have a family, but may delay it. Why? Because the bottom line is, it's a fact of reality that having a family and being involved in personal familial relationships is going to take away time. It will, by definition, put a hard limit on the number of hours you can spend on your career, for example. Unless you don't give those relationships the time they need, and they will inevitably fall apart. So if someone, let's say, prioritizes their career above everything else, it will make sense according to that set of priorities to delay, to push off having a family. And to Nadav and Avihu, it was the same sort of thing. They valued their closeness to and attainment of spirituality above everything else. And they knew the second they get married, that's going to take a lot of time away from Torah study and meditation and prayer and pursuit of spirituality. And then to go have kids, forget about it. Now, on top of having to spend time with a spouse every day It's like, gosh, it's like takes so much of my time to just like spend time with my spouse, right? And then to have to like hold a crying baby and change diapers and feed this kid and like, give them attention and all these things. It's like, how much time are they going to have left for like learning and meditating and praying? Forget about it. Not interested. Sorry. Wife, no, not interested. Kids, no, not interested. And what happened as a result? It said they were missing machusrei begodim. They were missing the garments. Now, literally, we said, what's the pshat referring to of that? The garments was referring to the big day kahuna, the clothes that they're supposed to wear. When a kohen wants to do their service in the Beis Hamikdash, there's clothing they're supposed to wear that they weren't wearing. But what else? What is clothing a metaphor for? Clothing is a metaphor for mitzvahs, right? The actions, the mitzvahs in which we engage surround our soul and are expressions of our neshama. They are the garments of the soul. And they were missing those. They could have gone to do someone a favor or get involved in helping people do mitzvahs or whatever it is, but they weren't interested. They were busy studying and meditating and pursuing spirituality. They were missing the garments. Their souls didn't have the garments they could have had because they were too busy in their self-centered obsession with the pursuit of spirituality. And that's why all these things that the Medrash tells us are very, very relevant and are actually referred to in the Pasuk. And this is why it repeats, Vayamusu, and they died. It's telling us the sequence of events, the cause and effect. Acharei mos shnei bnei Aaron, after the passing of the sons of Aaron, what happened? B'karvosam lifnei Hashem vayamusu. They came close to Hashem and passed away. How did they pass away? Why did they die? In a sense, it was a punishment, but it wasn't just a punishment. It was an outcome. Right? The Gemara tells us a story of Arba nichnasu lapardes. 4 people entered the orchard. Now, the orchard is a metaphor. They had a profound spiritual experience. And again, not just a neurochemical experience induced by a psychoactive substance, DMT, or something else that they described as spiritual. They actually had a true spiritual experience. They encountered spirituality. They consciously experienced spirituality, divinity. There were 4 of them. And the Gemara tells us, Ben Azai hitzitz vames. He went up there, he saw godliness, and he died. You know what we know about Ben Azai? Just like Aaron HaKohen's sons. He chose not to be married. He chose not to have kids because he wanted to learn Torah. He wanted to pursue spirituality. And as far as he was concerned, having a family, having a spouse and children is a distraction from what he wanted for himself. He wanted to pursue spirituality. So what happens? When someone's that obsessed with the pursuit of spirituality and all they want is spirituality, what do you think happens? They see godliness, they see divinity. It's like, yes, I'm there. That's what I want. Boom. And his soul left his body. Ben Azai didn't die. There's an expression people say about things. They're like, it's not a bug in the system. It's a feature of the system. Ben Azai dying when he had this experience of divinity wasn't a bug. It was a feature. He saw that divinity and he wanted it. That's all he ever wanted. He wasn't interested in having a family. He wasn't interested in helping other people. He wasn't interested in getting caught up in, doing mitzvahs and helping other people do mitzvahs. He just wanted to experience divinity for himself. And so when he saw that, he was all about that, and his soul just went, yes. And his body was left behind and he died. It's the same thing that happened to Aaron's sons. They were obsessed with the pursuit of spirituality. But karvasam lifnei Hashem, they came close to Hashem, vayomusu, and that's why they died. They didn't die as a bug of their behavior. It was a feature of their behavior. They wanted to just get closer and closer and closer to Hashem, and they got so caught up that their souls just kept on going and going and going and going until they left their bodies behind, and then they were dead because the body didn't have a soul anymore because the soul just left. And whilst this might, and so this is what the Pasuk's telling us. It says, B'chavasam lifnei Hashem, and it repeats, and they died. It's not just repeating something. It's telling us the sequence of events here. This was a cause and effect. It was a feature of the system. B'chavasam lifnei Hashem vayomusu. They came close to Hashem and died. As a result, they came close to Hashem to the degree that their souls just kept on going closer to Hashem and left their bodies behind, and then they were dead. And they were coming close to Hashem. That is related to the fact that they were missing their garments and they didn't have wives and they didn't have children. Because they were not interested in any of those things, because they were interested in their personal pursuit of divinity, their personal closeness to spirituality. So they chose not to get married and they chose not to have children because they weren't interested in the distraction from their own personal pursuit of spirituality that resulted in them dying, because actually that's what they wanted. Their souls just kept on going towards that spirituality. Now, practically speaking, this is probably, to a degree, largely irrelevant to most of us. But the concept isn't. The concept of understanding, because hopefully we are, trying to grow our appreciation for the value of spirituality. And hopefully we are growing in our pursuit of spirituality. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, as long as it's based on a healthy foundation. And that's why when the Gemara tells the story of these 4 people who entered the orchard, it says, Ben Azai hits its bames, and Ben Zoma saw, and he went crazy. And Elisha ben Avuya saw, and he became a kofar, he became an apikoros. Rabbi Akiva, nichnas b'shalom, v'yatza b'shalom. He came in peace, he came out in peace. It doesn't tell us anything about how the other 3 came in. It says 4 people went in. This one A happened. This one B happened. This one C happened. Should say Rabbi Akiva, yatza b'shalom. He came out in peace. He came out intact. The only one out of the 4. But it doesn't. Because it's very important to understand why he came out intact. Why did he come out intact? Because he went in intact. He went in with the right priorities. Rabbi Akiva was obsessed with the pursuit of spirituality, but he was obsessed with the pursuit of spirituality b'shalom. Rabbi Akiva, his whole life, he wanted to die al Kiddush Hashem. And when Rabbi Akiva was actually tortured to death, as far as he was concerned, that was the climax of his whole life. Being tortured to death on behalf of Torah. That was what every time he said Shema, he craved to die on behalf of Torah and mitzvahs. That's all he wanted. That was the climax of his life as far as he was concerned. That being said, why did he not actively pursue it? Because he knew that as long as I'm here, Hashem's put me here for a reason, because he wants me to bring divinity into the world. He doesn't want me to pursue death. So whilst Rabbi Akiva was obsessed with the pursuit of spirituality, well, I wouldn't say he was obsessed with, but he was deeply craved connection with spirituality. It was based on a healthy outlook. He understood why. He understood the true value of spirituality. Ultimately, it's all about Hashem. And if he actually loved Hashem, and because he actually loved Hashem, he understood that what Hashem wants is for me to be in this world. And yes, I can pursue spirituality and I can become spiritually oriented and I can appreciate the value of spirituality and want to connect with it. But if my desire to connect with spirituality is based on a healthy foundation of understanding why it's valuable because it resembles Hashem, and Hashem is absolute truth. So what does Hashem want? Hashem wants me to learn Torah here. Hashem wants me to do mitzvahs here. Hashem wants me to help people here. Hashem wants me to integrate divinity into the material world by engaging with it. That's why he came out in peace. He didn't get caught up in the spirituality and just pursue it and leave his body behind, because he knew the point was to bring it into his body, and then by means of his body to bring it into the world. And all of us absolutely can, and it's kind of a balance, and the reality of it is that it is a bit of a dance back and forth. And, on one hand, we learn about the spirituality and get really into it. But as we get more and more into the spirituality, if we're doing it right and nichnas b'shalom, and we come in with a healthy perspective, it's going to lead us closer and closer and closer. And then we're going to have that appreciation, and then we're going to say to ourselves, well, what's all this about? Ultimately, all of this spirituality is about the fact that Hashem wants to integrate it into the world, and then it pulls us back. And the terminology that's used is rotzo v'shuv. It says, it's in the Navi in Yechezkel, it says, v'chayos rotzo v'shuv, the angels were running back and forth. And in a sense, this relationship with spirituality is kind of a back and forth thing, and it has phases, and we move towards spirituality, and then if we're doing it correctly and it's nichnas b'shalom, yotza b'shalom, we're not going to get caught up and run away from the world by doing that. We're going to take that and pull it back into the world and harness that and try to take that spirituality and integrate it into the world. And this is something that all of us can make a real part of our lives. Even though most likely that most people are not suffering from the problem of not of an aviyot to that degree, or ben azai to that degree. All of us could possibly use a reminder that all of the spirituality is ultimately about taking that spirituality and integrating it back into the world and sharing it with more people and sharing it with the world through our interactions with the world and interacting the right way and being a living example and doing the right things with the right intention. But it's not about running away from the world. The point of the spirituality is to bring it back and integrate it into the world. And, it's a pursuit that does come with a degree of tension, because on one hand, the more our appreciation for spirituality increases, the less interested we are in the materialism of the world. But at the same time, as our appreciation for spirituality increases, our understanding for an appreciation for the importance of interacting with the world, we don't have to be pursuing the materialism of the world, but we do have to interact with the material world to integrate spirituality into it. And that's what they were missing, and that's why they died. Not just as a punishment, as an outcome. It was a feature of their misdirected pursuit of spirituality that they just left the world behind, and their souls even left their bodies behind. That's not what Hashem wants. It's missing the point. That's wanting to be close to someone we love without actually caring about what they want and what they need, which isn't love of that person, it's love for ourselves and the fact that being around them makes us feel good. That's ultimately what they were pursuing. Have a good week.
Thank you.